this is going to sound a little, but stay with me. It's going to sound a little dubious. Top Gun Maverick. Highest grossing movie since, I don't know, COVID. Worldwide, $280 million this dopey movie made. $280 million. I haven't seen it. Some of my friends have, and they loved it. All right? $280 million. Now, the reason I'm telling you this is because another movie's out. It's called 2000 Mules, and it's about the election of 2020. See the segue? Movie. All right, now that movie was made by Dinesh D'Souza. $10 million for an indie is pretty good. And Mr. D'Souza joins us now from Houston, Texas. And thank you for coming on. So I want to take this discussion in a different direction, okay? I haven't seen the movie, but I know True the Vote in Texas. I know what they allege. They zeroed in on Arizona, Georgia, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin. They said, look, there was voter fraud here. And it was basically people bundling votes, mail-in votes. We know, of course, that Mark Zuckerberg spent, what did he spend? $280 billion, some $1 million, some colossal, $330 million, I think it was, to give to groups, to bundle stuff. We know all that. Now there's a guy in Switzerland who apparently did the same thing Zuckerberg did, but the American press won't report it. So I'm going to believe you, Dinesh. I'm going to believe the movie. All right? I don't know whether you got it. It's circumstantial, but let's, for the sake of this discussion, say Dinesh D'Souza nailed it. There was bundling fraud in these key states. Now what? Now what? Can anything happen?
Well, I think what needs to happen is really pretty simple, and that is that True the Vote has the cell phone IDs of all these so-called mules. You know, a mule is nothing more than a paid operative who's dropping off these fraudulent or illegal ballots. Now, when you do the cell phone geo-tracking, and by the way, the data is available on the open market, so anybody else can replicate this research. There's nothing, quote, private about it. And so True the Vote is making the data available. Anybody else can check it. And then law enforcement normally takes action. And what do? They unmask the mules. Now, unmasking simply means going to a court and saying we have probable cause to believe something is wrong here. Court gives you a warrant. You go to the cell phone providers. They tell you who these mules are. And then, like in any other operation, if it was drug trafficking, if it was human trafficking, you'd go to the mules and say, who paid you, who put you up to this, who organized this whole operation. So that would be the logical step that law enforcement would take in any other area. And I think that would be the logical step in this case as well.
Why hasn't it been done?
The reason it hasn't been done is because of the politics. So if you look at these 5 states, it's very interesting, but you have a GOP legislature in the majority of them. But you have Democratic officials that run the state. So, for example, that's not true, by the way, in all 5 states, but it's true in 3 of them. So in Michigan, in Wisconsin, in Pennsylvania, you have Democratic Secretary of State typically, you have Democratic Attorney General. So those guys are not likely to spring into action. Now, in Arizona, you have a Republican, Brnovich, and in Georgia, you have a Republican establishment, Brian Kemp, and Raffensperger, the Secretary of State. And in Georgia, Raffensperger, to his credit, has said that based upon the data supplied by True the Vote, he's reopening an investigation into illegal ballot trafficking in Georgia. That investigation's been moving kind of slowly by my lights, but it is a direct response to the reports filed by True the Vote.
All right. Is there any federal apparatus? Say Donald Trump runs for office and wins the presidency in 2024. Can't he then have the Justice Department appoint a special prosecutor to go in and look at all of this data?
Absolutely. Well, and long before that, a Republican Congress can do it through hearings. So a Republican House under, let's say, Speaker McCarthy, a Republican Senate, could easily investigate these matters through Congress's powers of investigation.
But I don't know, does Congress can't issue a criminal subpoena, though, can it?
I'm not quite sure what
No.
the reach of those hearings is. They might be just informational for starters, but
Right.
let's remember
They've
there are
got to get some agency, and under Biden that's never going to happen, some federal agency to ask a judge for the subpoenas and get the information that you say you need to prove this once and for all. And I don't believe that's going to happen in the next 2 years. Yes, they can embarrass the Democratic Party by holding the hearings and having you and others come in, tell them what you know. But unless Georgia really, and I don't see it. I don't think there's any drive for this because the backlash, look at what you've gone through. The backlash is so ferocious. The big lie and D'Souza's a crank. And, I'm sure you've even been threatened, haven't you?
I mean, this is the most censored topic in America by far. I mean,
Right.
in digital media, they will censor other things like COVID and climate change, but no topic is more aggressively censored than this one. So I think you're right. The establishment does not want to reopen this issue. There are even many Republicans who just want to, quote, move on. They don't want to look back. And part of it, I think, is that they're not entirely unhappy at the result of the 2020 election. In other words, they feel like if this was what was necessary to get Trump out of there, okay, let's just pretend nothing happened and march forward. And that's what they're doing. So this movie, in that sense, has got tremendous headwinds against it. Now, that being said, the topic of what really happened in the 2020 election continues to haunt the American mind. There's like a desperate desire to know. And part of what the movie does that's unique is it doesn't just use the cell phone geo-tracking. It has a lot of surveillance video, 4 million minutes of it to be precise. And so you actually almost kind of go back to the scene of the crime and you're in a time machine and you're able to see what was going on in the days leading up to the 2020 election. And that evidence of your own two eyes is a little bit hard to dismiss completely.
How can people see the movie, Dinesh?
The website is just 2000mules.com, the number 2000mules.com. I've put the movie only on uncancelable platforms, so it's not in the familiar places like Apple, iTunes, or Amazon Prime. But if you go to 2000mules.com, there's 4 different ways to see the movie.
All right, we appreciate it very much. Thanks. And if you get any updates, please let us know.
I will.